Welcome, everyone, to AI for UX. This is the space for UX researchers and product leaders to stay current with AI innovations. And so I'm John Whalen, and I'm the founder of Brilliant Experience. And we are a psychology-driven product innovation firm. And personally, I've struggled a lot with keeping up with all the various AI tools for UX and product research, and I'm guessing I'm not alone. And that's why I started this series. In each case, we're speaking to a founder of one of the latest IA enhanced research tools to learn about the inspiration for the tool and how it might benefit you and where all of this is headed. So without further ado, I guess I just wanted to mention that these aren't product endorsements, and we always pay full price at Brilliant for any technologies we use, and no one's getting paid. It's really just to learn about the technologies together. So let's get started. I'm very happy to introduce Henrik. Henrik Mattsson is the CEO of Lookback, and it's a tool for talking to your users. And so thank you so much for agreeing to do this interview with us, and we're delighted to have you here. And I think what we should do is just dive right in and talk about your product. So maybe you can just tell me a little bit about the sort of the target audience for Lookback and the kind of things that you address.
Awesome. Yeah, thanks for having me. Pleasure to be here. So yeah, Lookback, it's for talking to your users, and it's mostly used by UX researchers and designers who are usually in-house, also some agencies, and they like to do mostly qualitative, well, with our tool, they do all kinds of research, but they use our tool to do their qualitative research. So usability tests and interviews mostly, and it could be also unmoderated testing across all the different platforms. So that's kind of what we've been doing for a long time now, and I like to think that we kind of offer a great product also for getting your team along on this journey that is research, because of course there's no point in doing all of this research if the people who should act on the research to build better experiences aren't really engaging with the insights that you find. So product is also kind of geared towards stakeholder engagement.
Nice. And I know you've been supporting the UX world for a long time. I've seen you at conferences and things like that, and it's great to see that sort of stability and dedication too. Well, maybe you can tell me just a little of, there are other, I think of like, I don't know, big like D-Scout or other tools. What is a little bit different about how you've sort of structured your product? And maybe, the series is called AI for UX, so maybe you can tell me you've got sort of new additions to this as well. So maybe you can just talk a little bit about that for us. Sure.
Yeah, for sure. So disclaimer here, I actually don't keep a super detailed track of kind of what the other tools do. I can say in general that having done this now for 8 to 10 years or something, I'm very happy to see that this space has gotten very rich with different solutions. We call all of these people co-creators rather than competitors. I think it's the problems that UX researchers are facing on a basis are by no means solved. I think we're not at the place in this market where either of these tools, us including, are kind of solving for all the things. So just you should really use the tool that you think fits with kind of your particular thing. But what I hear from our customers is that what makes Lookback special is, first of all, we're really strong in kind of the qualitative, easy to use, all kinds of interviews, usability testing. We work on all the devices, really easy to get going. And also kind of the ability to bring your team in kind of in the virtual observation room, right? So it's really for perhaps not researching together, but really building that stakeholder engagement. So that's kind of where we've been focused, where we're strong. We're not, we kind of focus on the carrying out of the research and the sharing out of the results. There are a lot of great tools that you can use together with Lookback to, for example, handle your participant management or your repository work. Those are things that we kind of leave to other players in the field. So that's kind of what we hear from customers in terms of where our strengths are. And then with the AI stuff, we're trying to support those workflows. So make it easier for moderators, for example, to multitask in the session and have an AI assistant that helps them with the note taking and things like that, so they can kind of stay focused on the participant, and also some stuff that helps them review, really finding those needles in the haystack without having to review video afterwards. Because you want to do an interview once, you don't want to kind of rewatch it over and over again. It's very time consuming. So yeah, we have some tooling for helping with that too.
Yeah, and I'm actually very familiar with the looking at my interviews multiple times, so I'm deeply appreciative of that. Um, and just how does the Eureka part of your tool? So is it primarily the things you just described? So helping with I guess note taking, moderation, and summarizing the data.
Yeah, at this point, so we have we have this kind of roadmap that we can talk a little bit about
Mm-hmm.
in terms of how we see this developing in the product. But currently, we have released two features. One that we called it headlines, and it's really kind of like it's been a it surprised
Mm,
us how popular it has become. For us, it was mostly kind of a let's see what we can do with this technology. Let's see how good it becomes. So basically, it's just it turns out
mm,
it's quite powerful. But what we do is we let the AI look at transcripts, and because we know that people use transcripts to navigate sessions, right? So you don't want to rewatch the whole thing, you don't want to scroll, you want to kind of search the
mm-hmm.
transcript for those
Yeah.
moments that you want to get back to. But even transcripts, even if that's faster than just like scrolling through a video, it's actually quite hard to read human transcripts because there's a lot of it's not
Sure.
poetry really. Too, as anyone who's reviewed a human transcript from a user interview,
Right.
it's not really super easy to scan it. So we were thinking, okay, what if we just make little headlines that are more easily scannable, so that people can just consume research without relying on this curation or like people sending them clips, but actually can get all of this super rich material that is qualitative research and just consume it in their own time at their own kind of pace. And so what the assistant does is it just creates these headlines that you can then scroll through, and I can demo that later. But so I
Yeah.
can review now kind of a user interview that someone did. So if my research team is working on something and a new
Mm-hmm.
video pops in from a user interview, I can just in 1 minute I can review an hour and see what's in there and kind of click into the parts that I'm
Mm-hmm.
interested in. So
Very
so
cool.
that has become super popular. And then the second part that we released is more kind of we call it the button, which is like
Mm,
there's a little Eureka button that you can press, because we saw in our player, we always had these like timestamp notes that were really popular because you just make notes while you're interviewing, and it's pretty easy. But as we discussed earlier, researchers who are moderating research are under very high cognitive load. They're
mm-hmm.
trying to build rapport with the with the participant, trying to understand what they're saying, trying to think about what they're going to ask next. All of these things are going on. So what we noticed was that people weren't really taking notes. They were kind of dropping
Mm-hmm.
like little code
Yeah.
for what I for insight or Q for quote, or because they just couldn't keep up with the thing, right? And then
Mm-hmm.
they had to go back and they had to review, and it was kind of hard to know what was what. And they had to re-listen, like what was this thing. So instead, we let the AI assistant basically take the note for researchers at the push of a button. So when you see something interesting, you hear something interesting, push the button, the AI will create a note for you about what that moment was about. So it will give you this. Sometimes you might need to go back and correct it, but it's way
Huh.
faster and more accurate than just these codes that you used to drop, right? So,
Yeah.
and it's very good to just navigate through. So that's where we are right now, and then
Well,
there's all kinds of interesting things in the future.
well, cool. Thank you so much. And I think that, now by now our viewers will be like, oh, I want to see what this is. So I think without further ado, we can think about, I think you've got a sample of a
Yeah,
moderated interview, and then what kinds of things you get produced. So with that, let me see if we can share your screen and let you kind of show what you're talking
yeah, for
about.
sure.
Sure, please
Perfect.
go
Yeah. So
ahead.
here you're looking now at the Lookback player, which has a couple of components. Here is the canvas where we have the participant's screen, we have the participant's face, we can hear their voice, obviously. Here's the moderator, that's me. And over here we have the feed. You can collapse this during live and everything, but it has two components. One is the transcripts that we get automatically, and these are the headlines here. So you can see like, oh, the participant agrees that transparency is a good idea. So instead of reading all of this and trying to see what's going on, you can just read this, and then you scroll through and you find, okay, they continue shopping, they do this thing, they agree with the moderator about something. They express satisfaction with one of the features. They plan to use this billing address. So you can see it's very quick to just scroll through like this. So these are the headlines that are generated. Then on this side, and you see everything is timestamped here. So I can just go to one of these if I want to, right? And I can also, if I see something here, quote or something, I can always just create a note from that and save that as a quote. On this side here, we have all of the kind of human-generated content. So you have notes that people are taking, but then you also have these little things here. So this was when I pressed this button here, so we can actually play now. Let's play and I'll show you live how this works. So this is the Eureka button. I play the button, I press this, and it says, okay, well, look at this moment. It takes a little while, and it will actually look. Okay, the participant expressed frustration with the limited options for older kids and struggles to find suitable products on the website. So it just kind of figured out the range, and it figured out what happened. And I can now, I can say that this was something that I can tag in, like a colleague of mine, Craig, for example, who is a design person. I can say, this is what we talked about, last week or something, right? So this becomes kind of a really nice collaborative field where obviously as you go through research, as every researcher knows, you're going to find hopefully the things you're looking for, and this is planned out, kind of, I'm trying to see if this works or if this is better, whatever, but you're also going to just stumble across a bunch of different things. That and with other tools, or like in the old days, like sometimes that would just never be really kind of socialized in the group, or end up in any report or anything, because you can't put everything in a report, right? But here with Lookback, you just have all of this stuff, and you can easily access every word here is searchable and timestamped, so you can all just go to that particular moment where this happened, and you can share it out, and you can create like highlight reels and stuff like that. It really has like these two kind of the button stuff that is generated here. Of course, if you want to make a note, you can always just like, human note. You can do that, and everyone can, and if this was actually something that you wanted to highlight, you can just create a range. If you do this manually, you just create like a 1 minute range, and then you can adapt it here. You see, these are all the little moments here. But of course, it's more sophisticated with the AI, because it kind of figures out by looking at the natural speech to see, okay, well, what is one kind of interesting thing. So that's kind of in a nutshell how it works. So you can watch this and you can do all of these things, and you have all of this stuff going on with all of these quotable things. So it's just a very effective way to get a lot of information, searchable information out of qualitative research.
Yeah, so if I was the product owner or someone, a developer, designer, and I didn't do the moderation, I could kind of search through the sort of lighter white things on the right there for these sort of
yeah, exactly. So, and you don't even have to do it here. I can show you kind of, if you go to our search bar here, you can just, let's say I want to do like toys, let's do something like that, or bugs, let's say bugs, here, and I found like all of the things where it says bug here in the product, that anyone has ever done. You can search for specific things, like I want this to be about something that the participant said. I go here, I can just immediately click into this, and it opens the player, and now I'm here in another session, and I'm at the place where there was someone was talking about the bug. So I kind of land in context here, and this is pretty cool.
This is great, and this was a really nice sort of brief summary. So thank you so much for doing that. I'd love to actually just hear,
awesome.
Just to sort of take a step back, and so I actually don't think I ever asked you about sort of the genesis of Lookback. So, lots of folks start as either researchers or designers, or always been in the startups. And so, for you, what sort of inspired you to create this product and, for the field?
Yeah. Well, so I actually was not part of the original founding team. I joined slightly
Hmm.
after the product kind of came into being. But the Lookback is kind of a spin-off from Spotify. It's a Swedish company back in. Oh, I mean, you know what Spotify is, but I'm saying that Lookback is a Swedish company from the beginning, and
Hmm.
two of the founders worked inside of Spotify, and they were kind of just trying. They were building the first iOS app for the Spotify player, and
Mm.
they were like
Yeah.
going around in Stockholm, which is a fairly small city, and they were kind of seeing people struggle, and they were like, "Well, this would be great actually to be able to just see this inside the team instead of having to randomly come across users on a bus
Hmm.
in the Stockholm city, right?" So that was kind of the one of the first, I think, might have been the first UX research tool for mobile research and just being able to use instead of going into the lab and having all these cameras and everything to be able to just record from the device. I mean, of course, nowadays stuff has changed,
Hmm.
so this isn't really radical technology nowadays. But back then, it was extremely hard to
Yeah.
capture a cell phone screen, for example. So that's kind of how it started, and then it grew from there. Yeah.
Yeah. And you've had some of these recent additions to this as well. Is there anything that just you and your team have had to work really hard to, and you're sort of proud of that you got to making this happen?
I mean, I'm one of those that I'm constantly extremely proud of of everything my team does. I'm going to try
Yeah.
to restrict the rant,
Good.
but I know it's really impressive. I'm a product person, and I love just like solving problems and building product together with other people. And there's so many. I mean, there's so many, and this goes for all my co-creators too. All these other companies that are trying to solve this. Now, there's so many important problems to
Hmm.
solve, but for us, I think it's been just to mention a few, we took a decision a while back to actually build all of the kind of video technology and live technology and stuff like that in house instead of
Hmm.
building, features on top of, let's say, a Zoom API or something like that.
Hmm.
And that wasn't an easy decision to make because it's really hard to kind of, you spend a lot of time and resources trying to build this thing. It's pretty hard to build like live, video infrastructure, but that's something that's really I think a lot of the quality of look back and the how we can kind of see everything end to end and control the whole user experience and all that stuff. I think that has turned out to be quite important, and especially now with the AI stuff and all of the transcription stuff and all that stuff. We have all of these streams. They are not,
Hmm.
we don't rely on a third party for that. So that's been a really impressive like technical challenge from our awesome engineering team.
Yeah.
So that's one thing. And just like we have a great UX team, researchers who have, we've done research on researchers now for 10 plus years, and I think
Yeah.
we're probably one of
Yeah.
the companies in the world that have kind of researched researchers the most,
Hmm.
and just accumulating knowledge about all the different problems that people face and kind of try to build a beautiful, easy to use product. And that's the feedback we get too.
Hmm.
So that's it. And then if I'm allowed to keep going a little bit, I think that once we got all of those things in place, the one thing that I find extremely interesting is this kind of getting the whole team along on the journey. I call this kind of the engagement problem, where you can do a bunch of research, and that's important, but your team has to
Yeah.
engage with that research and
Yeah.
incorporate it in their
Hmm.
work. And I remember when we started out, and I was visiting a big kind of lab environment from one of our big customers, and it was completely empty. They had all these like nice like seats for the
Right.
engineers behind the
Hmm.
glass and everything. No one was there, and people were telling me, oh, engineers don't care about research and everything. Then I was talking to engineers, and I'm like, well, they do care about user experience. They do care about what happens to the stuff that they build. So
Hmm.
something is wrong here. And that's a problem that it turns out it's basically about how research integrates into the product teams and all that stuff. And there's a lot that tooling can do to fix that. So I think that work is what we've been focused on mostly lately, and I'm pretty proud about like the results there. It was a CEO that told us the other day that Lookback had revolutionized research culture in their product team and stuff like that. And then you're
Good.
like, okay, good. I'll take an early afternoon and
Yep.
go have some ice cream or something. This feels pretty good.
Right.
Yeah, so
Yeah.
I'll stop there.
Nice. Well, and I think one of the things that I wanted to ask you, because you've been thinking about this more than many of us. Uh, just where do you see your product in the next, so with all the AI stuff, it seems silly to say the next few years, but in the future.
Mm,
And also, how do you see just UX research changing over the next while as well?
yeah, I think the two are really connected. When we started out, most of our customers were, in a pretty small segment of the industry. You had the big kind of companies um, building software like the Facebooks and the Googles and those kind of companies. Those were the only ones who really invested heavily in research. And over the years, we've seen how research has kind of expanded into all kinds of industries. Now we have all of the kind of industry codes represented in our customer base. So I
Hmm.
think there's been a huge kind of, the field has grown a lot. And this, I think, is great because the promise of UX research is there's nothing fake about it. If you want to build great product, you have to talk to your users. That's just that's just one of the
Right.
pillars of great product building. So we have to have this thing, but it's been slow, and I know it's especially now it's been terrible couple of 18 months or so for research. A lot of people lost their jobs, and there's been a lot of budget cuts and stuff like that. But I
Yeah.
still believe, and I've seen this over the years. When we started, people were always like, UX research is never going to take off. It's too small of a market and stuff like that. But all of that has been proven false. So, I think the promise of UX research is still there. We're still going to have to do this. UX researchers are not going to be replaced by AI. I think AI
Hmm.
is going to empower UX researchers and bring UX researchers to the core of decision making processes, because the more these technologies actually start behaving almost like humans, the more important
Hmm.
this skill set becomes. So we just want to support that, and I think it's also about the maturity of the product. I think we're going to go more kind of platform. We've been fairly narrow, but I also want to leverage all of this AI stuff that's coming, because that's really kind of a revolution for qualitative research in particular. Like all of this super
Hmm.
rich research that we generate that is so hard to it's time consuming to do, but once you have it,
Right.
it's also extremely hard to actually look through all of it. The kind of needle in the
Hmm.
haystack problem, and
Sure.
and LLMs in particular solve a lot of those problems. And we see that now where we just save so much time from interview to insight, but not just interview to insight, but interview to an insight that actually is in the hands of someone who can do something about it and integrate it in a product development process that actually makes sense. It doesn't arrive 2 months too
Hmm.
late, and engineers are
Right.
like, well, that would have been good to know back then. It's like instant like this. So yeah, the future is belongs to
Hmm.
UX research. I think that's my
Nice.
message.
Well, thank you so much. I mean, this is ultimately the kind of things I wanted to cover, and it's really interesting. So I want to get my hands on that. Write on a magical note there. If we actually did want, if I can share your screen one more time, if people did want to give this a try, can you just remind us what the best way is to get started?
Yeah, sure. So I'll just go to our website here, and you can try. We have a free trial, 60 days. You get some free sessions. You can also book a demo, and it's we have a bunch of people signing up all the time, and you can read about all of our features here and kind of see what we didn't go through that today, but you can use this for pretty
Hmm.
much like any qualitative research that you have. If you're really interested in the AI stuff, there's a bit about our roadmap here and kind of what we're trying to do. And you can request a demo or just like join our podcast where I interview um, a bunch of thought leaders in this field as well. So plenty of you can always reach out to us. We love talking to researchers and anyone interested in research. So yeah, don't be a stranger.
Cool. Well, thank you so much. I really, really appreciate it, Henrik, and it's exactly what I was hoping to do. So, and really, thank you for sharing Look Back and the new Eureka parts. So really, that's everything for today. Thanks so much for tuning in for the latest on AI for UX research. And subscribe if you enjoyed this, and let us know what other tools you'd like to see us feature next. And wishing you all brilliant insights with AI.